Mystery is an important element of design. We'll take a look at how you can create intrigue in your garden coming up next. During my years as a garden designer, I've enjoyed helping homeowners create private sanctuaries full of beauty and wonder. I find each garden to be a fresh opportunity to explore and create uniquely personal spaces. These are just a few of the gardens I've helped transform into garden homes. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to The Garden Home, a show about design and blurring the lines between inside and out. Now in today's show, we're going to talk about one of my favorite design principles, mystery. You know, having a little mystery in a garden can make it very intriguing. And some of the simplest devices can be employed to give you just a little touch of the unknown. For instance, just look at the way I've planted this curve of Russian sage. This is Pervovskia, which is a wonderful perennial. Now you can see that there's a gentle curve that wraps around, and from my vantage point I cannot see where the path is going to take me. So I'm intrigued. What lies beyond? Another thing that's interesting about this particular plant, so often people say, how do you get your Russian sage to rebloom in the fall? Well, there's no mystery to that. In about another month, this will fade. And after that, I'll come in and take 1/3 of it off with just some shears. I'll shear it off and it will flush new growth. And by September, we have a whole another host of flowers like this. It's really quite beautiful. Also in today's show, we'll hear from an expert on grafting Japanese maples, what beauties they can be, and what you can do with Citronella geraniums, as well as talk about one of my favorite ways to grow herbs. We'll also talk about what lies behind the walls in the garden home retreat that make it very green. Now let's get started with a construction update, but this one's very interesting, and get ready because it's loud and wet. Come on. This is a very exciting day out here because we're drilling a well and it's done very well. You see, we just put in this acre vegetable garden. I want to make sure we had plenty of water to make sure that we could water all the plants that we're putting in the acre. We're going to also do rainwater harvesting off the buildings, but just in case it really gets dry, I wanted a good backup. But you know, I couldn't believe it last week when you gave me these rods and we walked the property. And when we got near that spot, they just started going wild. Do you always witch wells every time you put one in?
Most of the time, not always. If it's in a good area, you don't need to, really.
Show me how you do that.
Well, you hold them, lock your elbows to your side, and you hold them about that far apart and hold them at a downward angle. If you get them up like this, they'll swing on their own.
Right.
You just hold them down here
slightly down.
and just start walking easy, and when you come across the water, they'll start doing that right there. See, I'm not doing that. That's doing it on its own.
You know, that's what happened on this spot, and you and I went at it from several different directions and decided that was the place to go. 50 gallons a minute. How long have you been drilling wells?
Not as long as you think, about 15 years.
15 years, yeah. Well, it's, you travel all over doing it?
No, I probably stay in a 50, 75 mile radius.
Yeah.
I don't like to go any further than this. It takes me too long to get to work.
I understand. Well, what's interesting about this rig, it's all self-contained, isn't it? You can just about go anywhere and drop it in and see what you can do, yeah. How often do you come up with nothing?
Occasionally I do.
Yeah.
Last one I drilled over here, I only got 3 gallon a minute for a fellow, and we went 200 foot with it.
Oh heavens, yeah. What's behind this this witching of well? How does that happen? Do you have any idea?
Well, I guess it's just a magnetic force from that water. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
But you can find a water line in the ground that's buried with that, or a septic tank,
yeah,
or whatever.
Now, before they used metal rods, didn't they use green saplings?
Yeah, a lot of people still do.
Yeah, and the green saplings will move the same way. Is there a particular kind of tree that's better than another?
They like a gum or willow, peach tree or something like that.
Something's got a lot of water in it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I just can't tell you how pleased I am to get this kind of water up here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll share some of these vegetables with you.
All right, I'm ready for that.
Like most of us, I try to be as environmentally responsible as I can. I do things like recycle. In the summer, I slightly push the thermostat up. In winter, I slightly push it down. When I brush my teeth, I turn the water off so it isn't running in the sink the whole time. I think all of these little measures add up to make a collective impact. When we built the Garden Home Retreat, we tried to make it as green as possible. We referenced LEED certification guidelines that a home has to pass to meet certain green building standards. Now, LEED, L-E-E-D, stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Although the Garden Home Retreat will not be following all the LEED guidelines, we've certainly made a big step in the right direction. You see, I've chosen mold-resistant drywall, energy-efficient windows and doors, and low-flow sinks and shower heads, which really cut down on the use of water. And also, to harness the sun, we installed a solar thermal system, and much, much more. Now, with the additions that we've made here at the Garden Home Retreat, I'm not only going to save some money on utility bills, but I'm also doing my part in helping the environment. One of the best ways to bring the garden indoors is to just use cut flowers inside every chance you get. And when you have something as luxurious and robust as these peonies, well, it makes it even more enticing to want to have them in the house. Peonies, of course, are perennial and considered by many the queen of the perennials just because of their gorgeous good looks. Now, when I cut flowers, this applies to many things, whether it's perennials such as iris or even biennials, foxglove or delphiniums and so forth, or whether it's annuals, things such as larkspur, coneflower, or even some of the bulbs like daffodils and tulips. I tend to take the same approach. I like to cut the flowers early in the morning while there's still plenty of moisture in the stems and the flowers before the sun evaporates it out. The other thing I like to do is cut them on a slight angle like this, where I cut the stem. This will allow for greater water uptake, and I take the excess foliage off because I never want the foliage in the water. And then I bring them indoors and I put them in a cool, dark place until I'm ready to arrange them. And I just make sure that the water stays clean. And you need to feed the cut flower. You can buy solutions or little granules that will feed the flowers. It's a sugar mixture, and it also has a little bit of citric acid in it to help with uptake. And it also has something in there to keep the bacteria from growing. If that doesn't work for you, do a solution of 50-50 lemon lime soda and just a little splash of bleach to keep the water clean. Now these are going to be gorgeous in the house. I'm going to put them on the mantle and they'll be beautiful in there because it's cool and out of the sun and away from a source of heat, and they should last with all of these buds up to a week. And one added advantage to these big giant blooms is the fabulous aroma. It's going to fill the whole back of the house with this sweet, sweet smell. I don't know about you, but I love potatoes. I love to grow them, but more importantly, I love to eat them just about any possible way. This particular variety of potato we're planting today is one called a Kennebec. My grandfather grew this one. It was one of his favorites. It was introduced in 1948. It has white flesh. It's a good potato for keeping, and it has a white skin and often sort of pear-shaped, as you can see here. Now, to grow potatoes, you want to plant them very early. I like to plant them in March. It's a little late in March now, but I think we're doing okay. And what you do is you just take a potato like this and you cut it where one of these eyes is a part of the piece. And you take these pieces of potato. You can see I'm cutting them here. You see I've got the eye there, and actually there's about 3 eyes, and I'll drop that into the trench. Now the depth is important. What I like to do is plant them about 8 to 10 inches deep. I'll put the eye standing up like this. Before I drop the potato in there, we'll put a little organic fertilizer. In the old days, they used to use a little bit of chicken manure. And then they're spaced about 14 inches apart, covered up, and then we'll put some straw over them. So you don't want the potatoes coming up on the top of the ridge because they'll turn green. What is so interesting to me is that you can take just a piece of potato like this, and with the Kennebec, it will produce potatoes in about 110 days. And for each of these pieces, you'll probably get 7 to 8 potatoes. So you can see this bucket full of pieces will produce a bounty of potatoes, or as the French call them, the pomme de terre, the apple of the earth. I can't believe how this orchard has grown over the past couple of years. It's grown in part because of, well, let's just face it, chicken manure. We have our chicken tractor out here that moves across the orchard, and the droppings from the hens, they fall to the ground, fertilize the orchard, and then of course we get the benefit of the eggs, and the hens get the benefit of all of this green grass and lots of insects which they love to eat. Now in the orchard we have about 67 trees that range, well, from about 1550 up to the present day. But some of the early ones include some that Thomas Jefferson loved, like Cox's Orange Pippin and Esophagus Spitzenberg. And you can see I'm just getting them staked. I'm a little behind. And today I'm just going around and removing some limbs that really aren't necessary, like taking this one off. So the thing about these apples, particularly these heritage varieties, they have to be grafted. That wood, that bud wood, is so important to perpetuate the next generation of some of these very, very old varieties. You see, by producing all of these different types of apples, what we're creating is a feast for the taste buds. Now, I have a friend who's interested in grafting, and he's creating beautiful ornamental trees that are a feast for the eyes. I'll let Larry Morphew tell you more.
Here you can see some of the varieties I have. I have about 130 different grafts of about 14 different varieties. And the thing in doing a graft is you choose a healthy looking rootstock. What you want is something that's fairly straight, because straight makes it easier to graft. You want something that looks healthy. And there's a few tools you also want to have. First of all, you've got to have your pruning shears. You have to have your grafting knife, which in my case I always use a box cutter, which is very easy to replace the blade. You also have to have a good scion. Scion, you need to be about 3 buds, at least 3 buds on it, where it will start good growth and look good. And the first thing you do is actually make a cut in the scion at an angle. All you do is you place the knife between your finger on your thumb, and you pull the blade down the length of the scion. You try to make a cut that's about 1 inch long, make it nice and smooth, like that. Then you turn the scion over for the other side. You make a shorter cut, same direction, just pull it through, and it makes a chisel side. So what you want is a good smooth cut with a lot of cambium showing. We'll take the rootstock, which is just a seedling, green seedling, Japanese maple. We'll make a 17-degree cut along the side, which is called a side veneer. We do it as low as we can, but we want enough space to do it in between the little nodules there, because that is a little difficult and you'll have a slip and sometimes cut a finger. We want a 17-degree cut. Try not to go more than 1/3 of the way through the tree. And you will take a little notch out right there, like that. Now, something I do that has probably been done numerous times, I call it a dot method. And you take a marker, you find where that woody part actually starts, so you know where exactly you're matching. Make a little mark on your scion. You also take it and you'll make a mark on your rootstock. So when you slide that down in there, you will match the 2 dots, and the cambium should be totally matched, and the woody part matched as well. And there you have it. The little notch there holds it in place. One of the things that you can use in grafting is grafting bands, but I found that a wide rubber band will work just as well. I'll take that in clipping, and you will band this to hold it together very snugly. You've already matched your dots on there. And what you do with your rubber band is you overlap it, and you want to work your way from below the actual cut all the way up to just above the cut, and then you will work your way back down just a little. Once you're above the cut, make your crossover, back around, come down a little bit more. You want to take your rubber band, loop it together, make sure it's snug, not too tight, and there you have the band. Something that is also essential to grafting is making sure that your graft doesn't dry out. It has to stay moist. You seal the graft very well with the pookie, where no air can get in there, and hopefully in a short period of time, with some patience, you will have the makings of a very beautiful Japanese maple.
Passing through a hedge and a gate like this is another way of creating a sense of mystery. When people come through this part of the garden, it's associated with the kitchen. So I have lots of herbs here. Now I don't have a traditional herb garden, but as you can see, I have lots of different types of herbs in containers. And the aroma here on a hot day like today, well, what can I say? It's incredibly aromatic. Now I have things like catnip, this little boxwood basil, sage, as well as mint, and stevia, which can be used as a sweetener for many things. You know, one of the plants that I really love in my little collection are the scented geraniums. They're not only beautiful, but very useful, and particularly one called Citronella. Kathy Ellis tells us more.
This is a beautiful Citronella plant. It's also known as a mosquito plant or a scented geranium. It has beautiful light lavender blooms in the summertime. Citronella can be used to sit on your patio to repel insects as you're sitting beside it. It also can be used as an insect repellent on your skin. You just break a leaf, bend it, and rub the oil from the leaf on your skin. It actually works as a DEET, just like a bug spray from the grocery store, but it's all natural. It will get as big as a small shrub. You can trim it back repeatedly and shape it into any form that you'd like. This plant loves the heat. It continues to bloom and it never shows the stress of the hot summer days.
Just look at these orchids. Aren't they beautiful? I just love having them around. You know, more and more people are growing orchids. They're appreciating them because they know they last for so long. And I have to say, they're less expensive than they used to be. With an astonishing number of varieties, orchids are known for their delicate beauty. Their reputation as an exotic and unusual flower, sadly, has given them a reputation as being difficult and fussy plants, which is hardly the case. You see, they're one of the largest flowering plant families with an estimate of over 25,000 species existing naturally and more being discovered every year. Now let me put this into perspective. The number of orchid species equals about 4 times the number of mammal species and more than twice the number of bird species. Now, they're commonly thought of as a tropical flower, but orchids actually grow in all climates and can make a beautiful addition to any room in your home. Well, this is the part of the show which I consider one of my favorites because I take photographs that you send to me and take a look at them. Look at ways that we might improve the landscape. Now today we're looking at a house in Michigan, belongs to Deborah. Now Deborah strikes me as an interesting person because she mentions the idea of thematic gardens. I think she'd like to accomplish that here and maybe is off to a start. Now, what I would like to do is come up with just a few ideas, Deborah, that will help sort of bring the garden together because we've got things going on over here, we've got some things going on here in the front, we've got some things going on right at the entryway here. So why don't I just start by adding some hardscape ideas for you to think about. What if we borrowed this idea here? You see, just that shape, and we did some sort of an arbor over here that created a sense of entry coming into this garden like that. and we painted it this chocolate brown, which I like very much, all right? Then let's grow some sort of a rose on top of that. Maybe it's a gorgeous climber. There's so many to choose from. I love this color. Maybe we repeat something in the same color family. Now, the next thing I want you to really think about here is that we need to tie in. This will help tie in the architecture, but I want you to think about a yew hedge that would come across here and come in behind what you've done here with this island bed, okay? Just like this. That hedge is going to come around like that. It can have a nice curve to it, and it's going to be about 3 feet tall. And so from the street, you don't see anything, okay? And this is a nice edge around here like this. We may even have room out here for a flowering cherry tree that could come up here, something like a Yoshino or a beautiful weeping cherry there. But this hedge is so important to sweep behind. Then you can do your island garden here, and you can go with a theme. It can be an herbal garden that has a biblical theme. It could have a Shakespearean theme or whatever in this particular place. And see, it's right on axis with the front door. Now over here, I want you to do the same thing. See this bit of lawn? I want you to come up with a yew hedge and come right across that sidewalk, right up to where your rose is. And that becomes a hedge there, okay? So you see we've created a room here in the front that you can see only by coming in through the arbor into this space. And then over here we have another room, and look at this fence. Another opportunity to grow clematis on that, or yet another rose that will echo off this, and here. So that'll help tie it together. I think you have a lovely place here, but what I'd like for you to do is try to tie everything in, because your hostas are very robust. I think we need a larger plant here in this corner, maybe some kind of a Daphne, or maybe it could even be just a simple evergreen yew. But anyway, Deborah, I hope these ideas are helpful, and good luck with your project. It looks very exciting. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Now, before we sign off, I just wanted to show you what's going on out here in my big vegetable garden. You know, I created these 3 raised beds. They're 8 feet by 8 feet each, which gives me an 8 by 24 area. Up here we have the nightshade family, tomatoes and peppers and eggplant. Here we have the cold crops, or cruciferous vegetables, where we've got cabbage and broccoli. And then over here we've got the melon family with all kinds of squash and cucumbers. Now, what I want to tell you is that in just 2 weeks ago, these were tiny little plants. What's the mystery? Well, there's really no mystery. You see, it's all in the soil. We really prepared the soil properly, and in these beds, I integrated a mycorrhizae, which is a good fungus that's causing this stuff to really grow rapidly. And another thing I want to point out is the fact that I'm using BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, to take care of any kind of caterpillar in the garden. It's a great organic approach. You can see I've just dusted these, but I stopped because it sounds like we may get a little rain. So I'm going to stop here and get those sprinklers turned off. So until next time, from the Garden Home, I'm Alan Smith. More information about today's topic and other topics covered in this series can be found at plansmith.com.